Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I'll be teaching you how to sew this with jean inspired Isabella dress. This is a sew along using the pattern by Viki Sews, which is available in the description. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get started. To make the dress, you'll need the pattern, which is available in the description, fabric, lightweight fusible interfacing, buttons, elastic, thread to match your fabric, and it's highly recommended to use a serger or an overlocker. Firstly, cut out all the pattern pieces. You'll end up with 26 pieces like this. The first step is to create the skirt. Using a ruler, mark the darts on the wrong side of the front and the back skirt pieces. On each skirt piece, fold the fabric right sides together and pin down the line so you know where to sew your dart. Now sew all 4 darts. Stitch on the sewing machine, starting at the wide end and going towards the tip. To give the darts a professional finish, stitch all the way to the very edge. Once at the edge, lift the foot with the needle still in and rotate the garment. Then do 2 to 3 stitches right on the edge and then go off. Press the darts flat, then press the front skirt darts towards the centre front and the back skirt darts towards the centre back. Next we will create the bodice front. Place the centre front bodice and the side front bodice pieces right sides together. Align the princess seam edges, pin and stitch using your sewing machine, ensuring that you backstitch at the beginning and the end. Next, overlock the seam allowances with the side front pieces facing up. Press the seams flat. Then press the seam allowances towards the centre front bodice. Now we will create the bodice back. Place the centre back bodice and the side back bodice pieces right sides together. Align the princess seams, match the notches, pin and stitch the pieces together on the sewing machine. Backstitch at the beginning and the end to secure in place. Overlock the seam allowances with the back side pieces facing up. Press the seam allowances towards the back. Next we will create the yokes for the bust. Using a ruler, measure from the needle a 4mm mark and a 9mm mark. This is where you'll sew 2 rows of gathering stitches along the bottom of the front yokes. Pull both threads so you have a long tail at the beginning. When placing the fabric under the needle, ensure it is 1 centimetre away from the centre front edge. Now begin sewing your first gathering stitch, which will be 4mm away from the edge. Sew all the way until you reach the notch which is indicated on the pattern, and leave a long thread at the end for gathering. I like to flatten the fabric so there are no pulls before I start my second gathering stitch. Repeat this again with the second gathering stitch, but have this at 9mm distance. Now pull on the bobbin threads to gather both yokes until they are the equal length of the top edge of the combined centre front and side pieces which we just completed, also known as. We will now attach the yokes to the bodice. The ring is even. With right sides together, place the bottom edge of the front yoke with the top edge of the bodice. Align the edges ensuring the notches match. Pin and then stitch using the sewing machine. Next, overlock the seam allowances with the yoke facing up. Press the seam flat and then press the seam allowances downwards towards the front bodice pieces. Now we will attach the back bodice to the skirt. Place the back skirt and the combined back bodice pieces right sides together and align at the waist edges. Match all notches, pin and stitch the back pieces on the machine. Backstitch at the beginning and the end to ensure they are secure. Finish the seam allowances on the overlocker with the back skirt facing up. Now press the seam flat and then press the seam allowances up towards the bodice. Now we will attach the front bodice to the front skirt. Place the front skirt pieces right sides together with the combined front bodice pieces. Align the waistline edges, pin and use a machine to stitch along this line, ensuring that you backstitch at the beginning and the end. Finish the seam allowances on the overlocker with the front skirt facing up. Press the seam flat and then press the seam allowances up. To finish the front's top edge, we will use a rolled hem on an overlocker. However, if you don't have an overlocker, you can finish it with a normal pin hem, or you can use a zigzag stitch on your sewing machine. In order to do the rolled hem setting, we need to change the settings on your overlocker or serger. Each machine is designed differently, so your machine will slightly vary to mine. However, you can use the manual that comes with your machine, and you can follow along as I change mine. Firstly, we will cut the 4th thread as we only need 3 threads when using a rolled hem. Next, I will change the overlocker's foot plate to the rolled hem foot plate which came with my machine. I will then change the tensions of each thread as per the instructions in my manual for a rolled hem. With the power off, I will open the side unit and change the wheel to R, which stands for rolled hem. I will now turn the power back on and I can start doing my rolled hems. While the official Viki Sews instructions don't say to do it now, I find it is a really good opportunity to also do the edge of the sleeves. This is because I'll have to do them later in the tutorial, but if I do it now, the machine's already set up for the rolled hem, so it saves me time having to change my machine back twice. After doing the rolled hem on the yoke and the 2 sleeves, I now have to change the overlocker back to normal. So to do this, I turn off the power, I open the side unit and turn it back to normal settings. I then change the plate back to the normal plate and remove the rolled hem plate. And I rethread the 4th needle. Once this is complete, I can turn back on the power. Now we will create the elastic channels for the yoke and for the sleeves. Using a ruler on the right side of the fabric, make 1 centimeter marks from the edge down the fabric. Then fold the fabric wrong sides together on the folding line. Pin to hold in place. Now use an iron to press the folding line. While this differs from the instructions, it is a good time to do the sleeve channels as well. This will save in time later. If you wish, you may fold the ends over 1 centimeter and tuck them under the folding line. Open up the channel and with the right side of the channel facing the wrong side of the yoke, place the iron channel line against the bottom channel line of the yoke and pin to hold in place. Now we will attach the yoke channel to the yoke. Now stitch along the channel line, ensuring you backstitch at the beginning and the end. Using scissors, trim the channel seam allowance down to 5 millimeters. Now using the iron, press the channel seam up, exposing the right side of the fabric. Now fold the channel's raw edge to the wrong side so that the finished channel is about 1 centimeter wide to fit the elastic through. Pin to hold in place and then stitch using the sewing machine. Once completed, give it a good press. Now get your elastic and measure the amount indicated on the pattern. Cut and insert a safety pin into one end of the elastic. Insert the safety pin into the channel and push it along until it reaches the end. Use a safety pin in the opposite end to secure the elastic so it doesn't ping out. Use numerous front stitches and back stitches to secure the elastic in place on both ends. Cut any excess elastic which is sticking out. Do this to both yokes. To fuse the interfacing to the placket and the back facing pieces, make sure that the fabric side is facing up and the gluey side of the interfacing is sitting on the fabric facing down. Then use a hot iron to press down on the fabric and hold for about 15 seconds. Now overlock the back facing's free edge with the right side facing up. With right sides together, place the back facing's raw edge with the top edge of the combined back bodice piece. Align all the edges, making sure the notches match. Pin and sew. Now we will understitch the seam allowance to the facing. Stitch on the right side at about 1 to 2 millimeters from the seam. Here is a close-up of how it should look. Then trim the seam allowances down to about 5 millimeters. Once you've finished this, give it a good press. Now fold over the back piece so wrong sides are facing. Slowly turn the raw edge up and under and pin as you go along. Now press this fold to keep it secure. Now use a needle and thread to do a few tacks in the back to hold it into place so it doesn't come up. Next, place the front and the back pieces right sides together. Align the sides, notches and waist seams. Pin and stitch, ensuring that you backstitch at the beginning and the end. Overlock the seam allowances with the front pieces facing up. Press all the seam allowances flat, then press them towards the back. Now we will hem the skirt. Mark the hem line 2 centimeters from the bottom edge. Fold the raw edge to the inside by 1 centimeter. Press with an iron and then stitch the hem on the machine at 1 millimeter from the top of the folded edge. Now we will add the placket to the dress. Fold the 2 placket pieces in half along the long edges with the wrong sides together and press with an iron. Place the placket right sides together with the centre front edge. Pin and stitch. In order to reduce bulk, trim off any of the corners of the intersecting seam allowances. Press the seam flat and then press the seam allowances towards the placket. Fold and press the placket's raw edge to the wrong side by about 8 millimeters. Fold the placket in half, right sides together. Align the short edges in such a way that the free folding edge covers the stitching line by 1 to 2 millimeters, as seen here. Pin and stitch along the short edges of the top and bottom. Now trim the seam allowances down to about 5 millimeters. Turn the placket right side out and push out the corners. Place the inner long edge of the placket in such a way that it covers the seam by about 1 to 2 millimeters, as you can see here. Secure the placket by stitching in the ditch. This will help it hide the second stitching line and it will be less noticeable. We will now create the sleeves, insert the elastic and then add them to the dress. To begin, I highly recommend cutting the pattern like this. So I've cut along the bottom line and that's allowed me to do a chalk line on the inside or the wrong side of the fabric. And again at the bottom, I've just folded up the paper so I can mark the bottom line of the channel. Now get the 4 channel pieces you prepared earlier and lay them out on the fabric just as you did for the yolks. So for the bottom line, we will lay the channel piece down so the top of the channel piece line lines up with the bottom piece of the sleeve. Now we will do the top channel just as we did with the yoke. We will align the top of the channel with the bottom line in the yoke and pin in place. Now stitch both channels in place. Next, get the iron and press both channels upwards. Now just as we did with the yoke, fold the raw edge under and secure in place with pins, ensuring there is a 1 centimeter width for the elastic to fit through. Pin this in place to keep it secure, press and now stitch. Next we will get the 2 pieces of elastic and put a safety pin through the top of the elastic and we will weave this through just as we did with the yoke. When you reach the end, secure each end with pins and then use the sewing machine to go back and forward many times to secure in place. With right sides together, place the ends of the sleeve together and pin. Then use a back and forth stitch many times to secure this strongly in place. Now attach the sleeve to the garment. With right sides together and the seams aligned, pin the sleeve to the garment. You'll pin about 180 degrees around the sleeve attaching to the garment, just like this. Now stitch in place and then overlock the raw edge. Now we will add the buttons. I did a slight deviation of the pattern, which says to have 16 buttons. I decided just to put 8, but you can do either. Use a ruler to find the middle of the placard and then use the same ruler to mark down the dress where you want your buttonholes to be, spaced evenly. To add the buttons, we must change the foot from the regular foot to the button foot. Next, I placed the button next to the measurement tool on my foot. This was to work out how long I wanted my buttonholes to be. Now I will change the settings on my machine so I do a downward stitch for a buttonhole. The measurement tool on my button foot will tell me how long to go and know when to stop. Now I will change my setting to the horizontal stitch, and then I change the setting of my machine back to the vertical stitch, heading back up to where I started. My last setting change is to do another horizontal stitch, going side by side to finish my buttonhole. If you are following the pattern, you will do 16 buttonholes as per the instructions. Now use a seam ripper to carefully rip open the buttonhole. Now with a needle and thread, I will hand stitch each button onto the dress. And there you have it, a beautiful replica Bella dress by With Jean. A big thank you to Viki Sews for making such a lovely pattern, and I highly recommend you purchase her pattern as this dress is so versatile. Thanks for joining me today, and subscribe if you haven't already. I am aiming to upload regularly with sewing tutorials for designer brands similar to Reformation, With Jean and Faithful the Brand. So if you like these videos, subscribe to get the updates. If there is a garment you would love to request, leave it in the comments and I'll try and make a tutorial for you. Thank you and see you soon.